Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 2 2022 NFL predictions. Well, what a crazy and wild Week 1 of the 2022 NFL season there was. It was so many close, bizarre, tough, tight games. From Cincinnati, Ohio, to Houston, Texas, to Charlotte, North Carolina, to Minnesota, to Nashville. So many games yesterday came down to a very close kick that a lot of kickers could not make, and some kickers could. And that's basically the difference in wins and losses for a lot of the teams. But overall, though, it was an exciting, thrilling Week 1 to have back. I am happy for everybody that's doing these predictions and doing these videos that football is back. It was definitely one of the more entertaining Sundays in recent memory. And I was also happy just because the college weekend was not really that great, in my opinion. But that's beside the point. But overall, though, for the Fanatic in his first week back in the old picking saddle, if you will, I did pretty good straight up, not really great against the spread. So this week so far against the spread and straight up, I am 6-9 against the spread, and straight up I am 9-5-1 due to the Indianapolis Colts and Houston Texans tying, amazingly and sadly. So that equals out to 40% against the spread, and straight up 9-5-1 equals to 59.4%. So it's definitely already weird after Week 1 already having a tie. It's the first tie since 2019 when the Arizona Cardinals and Detroit Lions tied back in Week 1 of Kyler Murray's first game with the Cardinals. So 40% against the spread, straight up 59.4. Pretty good. You know, look, tonight we have the opportunity with Russell Wilson in his first game as a Denver Bronco going to Seattle to get to 7-9 and straight up to get double digits, 10-5-1, which will be a little bit higher than 62.5% and 46.3% respectively. So, you know, overall, not a great against the spread weekend, but you know my goals are, as I've done these against the spread picks over the last few years, I always want to try to get 500, because every year I always seem to have a very tough time being able to manage correctly and against the spread line, but we will see how it goes. But you had all those crazy kicks. You had Minnesota in their 23-7 win over the Green Bay Packers, just absolutely dominate them. They held the Packers to about under 350 yards of offense. Rodgers had an interception to Harrison Smith. The first time he had thrown an interception against, I believe, his NFC North opponent in several years. I saw a stat about that. But congratulations to Minnesota. And even though I took the Packers to win, and I thought the Packers were going to win the NFC North, I do believe after watching Week 1, you could call it Overreaction Monday. Everybody that does these type of things will always kind of go with the overreaction. I do believe the Minnesota Vikings should be the favorite moving forward in winning the NFC North. And for the Packers, after Christian Watson, the only two spots that I will say, as someone that picked the Packers, if Christian Watson catches that first touchdown and they score on the goal line to tie the game, I think at that point the game changes, and I think the Packers are in a much better competitive aspect than they are, through the rest of the game. So there was that. Browns, Panthers. Baker Mayfield kind of had an up and down game, but he was able to come back from a double-digit deficit to get him up 23-21. And then Jacoby Brissett was able to just barely do enough to get the Michigan kicker, the fifth-rounder, Cade York, out there for the second longest field goal in Cleveland Browns franchise history, and the second longest field goal ever made by a rookie at 58 yards to win at the gun, 26-24. And I think for Cade York, that definitely showed after the rest of the weekend how valuable Cade York will be for the Browns moving forward, and he may very well rival Justin Tucker as the best kicker in the National Football League just because of how good that kick was. The Chargers and Raiders, they played really well. Justin Herbert had 3 touchdowns, about 280 yards. They played. Khalil Mack had his best game as a football player since his debut with the Bears, having 3 sacks, a forced fumble, and a fumble recovery or 3 sacks and a forced fumble. His best stat total since Week 1 of 2018. I thought Keenan Allen going down was big. And I thought the Chargers' offensive line did okay. They really couldn't run the ball that much. They had about a little under 60 yards combined. But they didn't have J.C. Jackson, and they still won the game by 5, even without Keenan Allen. So, that's a very impressive victory to me by Los Angeles. The Jets were the Jets. They've lost 13 straight games now in September. Joe Flacco threw about 50 times, about 370 yards, and really couldn't do anything. He had one bad interception to Marcus Williams, the new Baltimore Raven, and then Breece Hall had the fumble from Marlon Humphrey that basically just ended the Jets' run. And with Joe Flacco starting in the next 2 weeks, I think it's going to be a very rough couple of weeks for the Jets fans moving forward. When they get to play Pittsburgh week 4, maybe Zach Wilson comes back, and maybe there's some hope in the New York locker room. Carson Wentz, I thought, did well. Again, in his game against the Jaguars, I watched most of that game since I live in the Maryland area. I got to watch that one. I thought Carson played a respectable game. He had a horrible blunder when it came to that interception to Trayvon Walker, who became the first player since T.J. Watt in his first game to have a sack and interception in his debut game. So that was very impressive. But Jacksonville, man, they had some moments. Travis Etienne had a really good game, though he had a big drop that cost them. But Jahan Dotson with his 2 touchdowns were really important. And I think that for the Commanders, especially with what happened with Dallas, losing quarterback Dak Prescott to a broken thumb on his throwing hand, and he's likely out for 6 to 8 weeks, as reports suggest, that the Washington Commanders could actually maybe win the NFC East, especially with how the Eagles looked. Even though they looked pretty good, and Jalen Hurts did have 200 yards, and they had 4 guys, Hurts, Sanders, Boston Scott, and Kenneth Gainwell all scored rushing touchdowns. And A.J. Brown set an NFL record for the most receiving yards in an NFL debut by a non-rookie. I believe he had 155 or 185 receiving yards for the whole game. I wish that Devontae Smith and other guys could have made more impact. Dallas Goedert, I think, was the second close best receiver at 60 yards. But the Eagles were able to pull out a victory 38-35 and get to 1-0 and take a nice, firm lead of the NFC East moving forward. And I'll talk about the rest of the games as well through the rest of my picks. And here they are for Week 2. So, on Thursday, when the 1-0 Los Angeles Chargers travel to Kansas City in the first Amazon Prime Video exclusive Thursday Night Football game, the Kansas City Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites in this game. This game is going to be really fun, and after watching Week 1, this is probably going to be the game of the weekend, in my opinion, right off the bat on Thursday. Both these teams are going to be great. Both these teams are going to be, talented. But I'm going to take the Kansas City Chiefs here to beat the Los Angeles Chargers straight up. But I think this game is so close, and I know you can say it's a low number, but I'm going to hedge my bet here. I'm going to take the Los Angeles Chargers here plus 3.5 to cover the spread. So once again, I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning here straight up, the Los Angeles Chargers plus 3.5. The next game, when the 0-1 New York Jets travel to Cleveland to take on the 1-0 Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are 6.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cleveland Browns here minus 6.5, and the Cleveland Browns straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Washington Commanders travel to Detroit to take on the 0-1 Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions are 2-point favorites in this game between the number 1 and number 2 picks of the 2016 NFL Draft and Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. In probably my first upset of the year outright, I believe, I am going to take Washington here plus 2 against the spread and Washington straight up to beat the Detroit Lions next Sunday. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to New Orleans at the Caesars Superdome to take on the 1-0 New Orleans Saints. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-point favorites in this game, just like with the Chargers Chiefs, and you could argue this one's a little bit different, but just due to the recent history, and I'll explain that here in a bit, I'm going to take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here to win straight up, but give me the New Orleans Saints here plus 3. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Carolina Panthers travel to New York, or MetLife Stadium, to take on the 1-0 New York Giants. The New York Giants are 2.5-point favorites in this game, in a very surprising move from a lot of people that they would think after Week 1, especially how the Giants beat the Titans 21-19. I'm going to take the New York Giants here minus 2.5 to win at home and to get to a 2-0 start for the first time in 5 years, or in 6 years, to beat the Carolina Panthers, and I'm going to take the New York Giants minus 2.5 as well. Then the next game, when the 0-1 New England Patriots travel to Pittsburgh to take in the brand new brand newly minted Acrisure Stadium, the 1-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. This is essentially a pick'em game. Pittsburgh on the line here is +1. Even with the injury to TJ Watt due to the torn pec muscle, I'm going to take Pittsburgh here +1 and Pittsburgh straight up to win. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Indianapolis Colts travel to Jacksonville to take on the 0-1 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Indianapolis Colts are 4-point favorites in this game. Give me the Indianapolis Colts here, -4, and the Indianapolis Colts straight up. Then the next game, when the 1-0 Miami Dolphins travel to M&T Bank Stadium in Baltimore to take on the 1-0 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Just as you've kind of seen a common pattern here with some of these close games, I'm in divisional, or well, not divisional games, but close games. I'm going to take the Baltimore Ravens here to win straight up, but give me the Miami Dolphins +3.5 to cover. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Atlanta Falcons travel to Los Angeles to take on the 0-1 Los Angeles Rams. The LA Rams are 10-point favorites in this game, and I was really impressed with Atlanta with how they played against New Orleans. I thought New Orleans was going to smoke them, but that was clearly not the case. But I am going to take the Los Angeles Rams here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Atlanta Falcons +10. Then the next game, when the 0-1 or 1-0 or 0-1 Seattle Seahawks travel to San Francisco to take on the 0-1 San Francisco 49ers. The San Francisco 49ers are 8.5-point favorites in this game, and I will say this right now, since I'm doing my video today, I do not know how this game is going to go. If Denver absolutely slaughters Seattle, I might change this against the spread pick to San Francisco. I'm taking San Francisco regardless, but right now I'm going to take Seattle +8.5 due to what I know and what I saw out of them San Francisco yesterday. I'm going to take Seattle here +8.5, but San Francisco straight up. But due to this video coming out today, I do want to say to everybody, I might change my mind and take San Francisco -8.5, depending on how Seattle looks tonight. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Cincinnati Bengals travel to Dallas to take on the 0-1 Dallas Cowboys. The Cincinnati Bengals are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me the Cincinnati Bengals here -7, and the Cincinnati Bengals straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Houston Texans travel to Denver to take on the 1-0, 0-1 or 0-1 Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 10.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Denver Broncos here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Houston Texans +10.5. Keep going here. Then the next game, when the 0-1 Arizona Cardinals travel to Las Vegas and Allegiant Stadium to take on the 0-1 Las Vegas Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are 4.5-point favorites in this game. Give me the Las Vegas Raiders here, -4.5, and the Las Vegas Raiders straight up. Then in the Sunday night game, in the oldest rivalry in the NFL, when the 1-0 Chicago Bears travel to Green Bay to take on the 0-1 Green Bay Packers. Very rare you get to say that in this day and age in the NFC North. The Green Bay Packers are 10-point favorites in this game. Give me the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Chicago Bears +10. Then the next game, in the doubleheader Monday Night Football slate this week, when the 0-1 Tennessee Titans travel to the 1-0 Buffalo Bills at I forget what the Bills' new stadium's name, but the Bills Stadium. The Buffalo Bills are 10-point favorites in this game. Give me the Buffalo Bills here -10, and the Buffalo Bills straight up. And finally, in the Eagles home opener at the Link, the 1-0 Minnesota Vikings are traveling to Philadelphia to take on the 1-0 Philadelphia Eagles. In my third upset pick of the week, just outright, I'm going to take the Minnesota Vikings here +2.5, and the Minnesota Vikings to win straight up. So those are all the quick run of my picks. Now let me give you my explanation, some of the analysis I had for each game. The Kansas City Chiefs over the Los Angeles Chargers. I am taking Kansas City here because of what I saw yesterday. Patrick Mahomes was sensational. He has had 6 games of 5+ touchdowns and only 65 starts. He is, I believe, he's the fastest one to do it. I believe he's only the 6th quarterback all time to have that many 5+ touchdown games. He was throwing to everybody. 9 different receivers caught balls for the Chiefs. I thought the Chiefs' defense was fantastic. They pretty much held Kyler Murray and them in check until about garbage time and held it the way through. I also want to congratulate Travis Kelce. He had another 100-yard game. He becomes the 3rd tight end, joining Rob Gronkowski and Tony Gonzalez as the only tight ends in NFL history to have 100+ yards in 30+ games. I was interested to see what happened with Harrison Butker. Apparently, he twisted his ankle at some point in the early part of the game, and then he had to basically exchange kicking duties with safety Justin Reed, who has a pretty good leg. He did make one extra point, but then missed another. But then I think by that point, Butker had come back. And if you look at this Chiefs-Chargers series, this has been a close series. Herbert all time is 500 against this Chiefs team, and if I remember correctly, 3 of those 4 games have been one-score games. I believe the Chiefs won in the last Thursday game off a walk-off touchdown to Kelsey. Then the time before that, that was the blowout where the Chiefs rested all their starters. Week 2, or in week 3, and that's 2 years ago, they won 30-24. And in Justin Herbert's first game, they won off a field goal at the end from Harrison Butker, who had to draw like a 50-plus yard field goal. So, these games have been incredibly close and incredibly consistent most of the time. But also, like I said, I want to congratulate Khalil Mack for his 3-sack game. And I still have the Chargers winning the AFC West. I think they are the best team overall, and they showed it. But when you look at this Chargers team, they only had 53 total yards from all their running backs of Eckler, Sony Michel, Josh Jackson, everybody else. And the injuries to J.C. Jackson, who's probably not going to play, and Keenan Allen, who left the game with a hamstring injury. I believe that's going to be important. And he said there's a very slight chance he'll be able to go, but I'm not banking on it. And so I think with those injuries, I think the Chiefs are going to be able to win this game. Could the Chargers win this game? Absolutely, because I think, again, Justin Herbert's been that good. That offensive line can hold up pretty well. I think the Chargers provide a much bigger threat to Kansas City compared to Arizona. But I'm going to take the Chiefs here because I think Mahomes looked fresh. He is the MVP right now. I think that entire team is confident and motivated. And they feel good coming into a short week at their home opener against a Charger team that, I thought pretty much outplayed the Raiders most of the time. Except for, a couple of bad spots at the end. But at the end of the day, it was still a 5-point game. If it wasn't for Derek Carr's 3 turnovers, they'd probably lose that game. And I don't think Mahomes is going to have those 2 turnovers. And I just think the Chiefs, just at the, this kind of home field advantage, last Thursday game, they went off a walk-off. I think the Chiefs just kind of keep that momentum going, and they beat this Charger team, even though I still have the Chargers winning the AFC West. So that's why I have Kansas City here to win straight up, but the Los Angeles Chargers plus 3.5. The next game, the Cleveland Browns over the New York Jets. Congratulations to Cleveland. For the first time in 18 years, the Browns won their opening day game. And it was mostly probably by Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt scored the 2 big touchdowns. And Nick Chubb had 141 rushing yards overall. And then again, just to mention again, Cade York, 5th rounder out of Michigan, the 2nd longest field goal by a Browns kicker in Browns franchise history, and the 2nd longest by a rookie. And it was just one of those weird moments that, I didn't think Jacoby did that great at all. Really, he was just able to rely on Chubb and Hunt to run. The offensive line held pretty well. Myles Garrett had 2 sacks. I thought that the Browns defense really did a good job on the Panthers receivers. Besides Robbie Anderson, nobody really could make any big plays. Christian McCaffrey was held to about 30 yards rushing. And I just think the Browns, they can take that formula and duplicate it against a really bad Jets team. The Jets have lost now 13 straight games in September. I wasn't really impressed with a lot of their receivers. Garrett Wilson had 1 nice play. The offensive line was, not that great. Flacco was under duress a lot of the time. So if our pass rush can get after Joe, definitely the Browns can too. Hopefully, the Jets' run defense is pretty good, but I think the Browns' offensive line is better, and they're going to commit more to it, to the run game. And I just think, again, Jacoby, all he has to do is just not make a mistake. Let the Browns' defense and their run game control the clock, and let Flacco make his blunders, or let Breece Hall fumble, or let the Jets jet, and let them make the mistakes. To let Jacoby just play conservative, safe, and consistent football, and the Browns should be able to win this game. Could the Jets make it competitive? Maybe, Look, the Jets beat the Browns a couple of years ago with Baker when nobody thought, after they beat the Rams, nobody thought they were going to beat the Browns 2 years ago, but they did in back-to-back games. But these are 2 completely different teams, and I think, honestly, for the Browns, after the injury to T.J. Watt, the Browns actually probably could make the playoffs with their schedule and how they're going about it. They can win enough games to keep Deshaun afloat and alive to go into the playoff hunt. Regardless of your personal opinion about Deshaun or his off the field stuff. That Browns team with Deshaun Watson would be a scary team. And if the Browns can, parlay, the Jets game. They play the Steelers the week after. I think they play the Falcons after that. If they can parlay a 4-0 start, that should be enough to keep them playoff viable for the rest of the year, even through the ups and downs of the rest of their schedule. So, but I think, again, the Jets, they did not look that great. They're the Jets. They've lost 13 straight games in September. I'm not really, motivated or inspired to see a lot of their secondary. I think Jacoby plays a better offensive game through the air, and I think the Browns easily get this victory. So that's why I like Cleveland here, -6.5, and Cleveland straight up. The next game, the Washington Commanders over the Detroit Lions. I think for me, the thing with this game, because look, the Detroit Lions, I said this to everybody, and I think I was proven right in a way. I know the Eagles were up by about 18 points, early in the fourth quarter, and it definitely kind of, maybe you could say, was garbage time scores, two of them, to make it 38-35 instead of 38-21, which what it was early in the fourth quarter. I thought the Lions, though, did a good job. DeAndre Swift was really big. He ran for 144 yards, really was a catalyst. I thought that, the Eagles secondary did a fantastic job. They pretty much held a lot of the Lions receivers, Hawkinson, St. Brown, Raymond, Chark. They really held him in check, and Jared Goff did not have a great game. And they got a pick 6 off Jared Goff, which was kind of huge. Great scheme of things. They basically won the game during the middle part of the game. And it's one of those games to where, again, the Lions, amazingly, in this series, they have won 5 of the last 6 meetings against the Washington Commanders. So, I could see why the Lions are slightly favored, and you could say, look, Carson, with that throw to Trayvon Walker, winced up. He winced his pants again, and, he almost winced his pants and cost the Commanders a game that everybody would go, okay, that's just Carson being Carson. But at the end of the day, when I look at that battle, I just kind of look at it saying, I'm going to trust the quarterback that did win over the one that didn't. I think both receiving cores, I think Washington has a better receiving core in terms of Dotson and McLaurin compared to what Detroit has. The offensive lines, Detroit might have a slight edge there, but I think Washington has a better defensive front, and Washington has the better secondary. And I'm just going to trust the coaching of Ron Rivera over Dan Campbell. I'm rooting for Dan Campbell. Shout out to Halfman's Picks, and go watch his channel, please, for great NFL picks. I just think Ron Rivera, he's been around this. He definitely showed a lot of resolve through that game. And I just think Carson, even through his ups and downs, I think he has a couple more ups in this game. He makes a couple more throws to McLaurin and Dotson, along with Thomas, to win this game. Should be an interesting game. And if Washington goes 2-0 with how the NFC East is looking, I wouldn't be that surprised if they can compete. They can compete for the division. So that's why I like Washington here +2 and Washington straight up. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over the New Orleans Saints. This is one to where when I watched that New Orleans Saints game, I was incredibly shocked, disappointed, and impressed at both teams to how the Atlanta Falcons, in maybe typical Atlanta fashion, could blow a double-digit lead with about 8 minutes to go, and then Jameis Winston pulling a rabbit out of his hat, throwing that big bomb to Landry, and then the other one to get Will Lutz in position to kick a 51-yard field goal. But I look at what the Saints have done, and it's just very hard because I felt like Atlanta, Cordero Patterson was able to run for 120 yards. Mariota made a couple nice stops. They were able to get a lot of pressure with Grady Jarrett, with Dion, with a lot of those Falcon defenders constantly at that New Orleans offensive line. And Tampa's offensive line's already in shambles, with them already losing Jensen, the left guard, and Donovan Smith left the game last night against the Cowboys. So that offensive line is definitely going to be in the mood for the Saints pass rush. And it's just the history of this rivalry. If you look at Tom Brady in his time in Tampa Bay, he has never beaten the Saints in a regular season. And ladies and gentlemen, here are his numbers. Through the 4 games, he is 0-4 with a 61.1% completion percentage, with 1,037 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. He has been absolutely dreadful all this time. And I feel that with, that kind of thing, I think that's why I have to take New Orleans +3 here. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. He's already lost to Taysom Hill, he's lost to Trevor Siemian and Jameis Winston, and he lost to Drew Brees over his 2 years in Tampa. So losing to Jameis again, wouldn't be that big of a shock. And I also want to congratulate Michael Thomas for scoring his first 2 touchdowns since Week 12 of the 2020 NFL season. But I just think the way Tampa played and the way that offensive line from New Orleans could hold up, I think Tampa's defense can win the day in this game. I think Tampa can, generate a lot of good pass rush. Devin White was all over Dak and Cooper Rush throughout the game. Antoine Winfield got a big pick on Dak, and I thought Tampa's defense, when a game when Leonard Fournette had 127 rushing yards and Brady only had 1 touchdown to Mike Evans, in a game where the offense really outside of rushing Fournette was stagnant, their defense really stepped up. And I just think for New Orleans or for Tampa, I think they're tired of getting beat by the Saints. I think they don't probably understand because they think, wow, we have probably equal defensive lines. You probably have equal, receiving cores. Even though Chris Godwin left the game with a hamstring injury, which, good luck to him and his health. But they just probably feel like they're tired of losing to this, Bucs team. Even though you could argue the Bucs got the most important win, which was the playoff win in the 2020 season, compared to the 4 regular season win the Saints had. But I just think, again, I'm going to take the Bucs here because I think Tampa's defense will be able to generate more pressure compared to New Orleans against Tampa. And if you're telling me Jameis and Tom, with the weapons they have and just the expectation there was, I think Tom can outplay Jameis in this game. And I think that's why I'm going to go with them. I feel like Tampa's pretty tired of getting beat up by the Saints every year for the last 2 years. I think they're going to take it out. And I just think Tampa plays a little bit of a better game and generates a little bit more pressure compared to New Orleans. But I'd be surprised if New Orleans won, not at all. Because, look, New Orleans has won, the last 4 times. And I didn't think besides week 1 of the 2021 season, or the 2020 season, that I actually thought that, all that was going to happen moving forward. Because I've taken Tampa this many times. I just think this isn't Breeze and this isn't Sean Payton. And I think Dennis Allen and that Saints team will get outcoached by Todd Bowles and his staff in a very interesting and very important divisional game in week 2. So that's why I like Tampa Bay here to win straight up in New Orleans +3. The next game, the New York Giants over the Carolina Panthers. This one to me is essentially coming down to, look, Carolina, Baker still hasn't won an opening day. I mentioned all the stuff about Carolina before. The offense really didn't look that great. I thought, Brian Burns on the defense was probably the best defensive player the Panthers had. They missed Hassan Reddick. They also just kind of looked awkward, and also it was really big for me is that it was the return of Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley had his highest rushing total since week 12 of his rookie year. I believe he had 176 yards, which was insane. They basically needed all those yards for them to win the game. The Giants for the first time in 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, or 19, the first time in 5 years, ladies and gentlemen, the New York Giants are above 500 since 2017. There's actually a correlation there. So the Rams, when the Bills beat the Rams, that was Sean McVay's first time being under 500. And for the Giants, for the first time since that same point, they were above 500. So just a little fun fact there. But in this game, I'm going to take the staff and the consistency of Brian Daboll, who I thought called a pretty much consistent and solid game. I know he was probably, I was happy he chewed out Daniel Jones for that horrible interception to Amani Hooker in the corner of the end zone. That screwed my cover because I thought that was basically the end of the game and I was going to be able to get the win and the cover. But I digress. And I'm just going to trust Brian Daboll to outcoach Matt Rule. I think Matt Rule, the team over the last few years, it's been competitive. It's been a lot of close games, but he just can't find ways with all the different quarterbacks from Bakers and Sams and PJs and Cams and all those guys. He just can't find a good enough quarterback to be able to win these type of close nip and tuck games. So, again, I think in a way, look, and I'm going to use recent history. Joe Judge beat Matt Rule last year 25-3 in that crazy, bizarre game that was basically the end of Sam Darnold's time in Carolina to begin with. I don't think it's going to be that crazy. I do think with Baker it's going to be more competitive, but I'm just going to trust the Giants' home field advantage along with the staff of the Giants to outdo the Panthers in a interesting kind of game that I think will be more competitive and just hidden under the radar just due to the lack of explosive talent or expectation that both these teams have. So that's why I like the New York Giants here, -2.5, and the New York Giants straight up. The next game, the Pittsburgh Steelers over the New England Patriots. This is one to where, even with the injuries to T.J. Watt, Najee Harris, Levi Wallace, and all of them, Pittsburgh pulled up probably the upset of the day with how they played the Cincinnati Bengals, just an absolute thrashing of defensively. Fun fact, Pittsburgh now is 53-0 as a franchise when they have games with 4+ sacks and 4+ turnovers in the same game. 53-0 now. And I was really impressed with Minkah Fitzpatrick, who got a pick 6 return to really start scoring. I thought TJ Watt getting an interception, best of luck with his help with his torn pec. And I just really thought that Pittsburgh played an astoundingly crazy game. It was crazy to see McPherson miss the 29-yarder. And the extra point, well, even though that was a better... apparently Clark Harris, who was the backup, or was the long snapper for the Bengals, got hurt in the game, and they had to use their third-string tight end to snap the ball. And he snapped it high, and it got blocked by Minkah the first time, and it got snapped. Laces out! Ray Finkel, everybody. That will appreciate that reference. That didn't happen, and the kick went as wide left as, you could think. But I look at it with Pittsburgh just saying, I just trust Pittsburgh's roster. I think, the offensive lines are about even. I just think Pittsburgh has better receivers, better runners, a better competent play caller in Matt Canada compared to Matt Patricia calling plays on offense. And fun factor, Bill Belichick in his career, he has never beaten Tua Tagovailoa in a game, which is amazing to me, just knowing all the people that Bill Belichick's beaten in the Patriots history. He's never been able to beat Tua at home or on the road. He's 0-4 against them all time. And now for the Patriots, they are 2-8 in their last 10 visits to Miami in those divisional games. And also, I'm just going to bring up the fact that the last time Pittsburgh played New England, without Tom Brady, they beat Matt Castle. And Mac Jones is more Matt Castle than Tom Brady. And I think Pittsburgh, even with all the injuries and unfortunate or uncertainty, I think this Pittsburgh Steelers, just with their confidence in coaching and their talent, even with the injuries, are just better than the Patriots. I can't believe the Patriots are 1-point favorites. I think that's because of the injuries to TJ and Najee. But I just think with this Patriot team, from what I saw out of them, they're not talented enough to really even be competitive, even with injuries. Cleveland, we'll see how they do against the Jets. That's a different story. Cleveland probably, should win next week if they put up a good game against the Jets or no significant injuries happen for them. But I think against New England, they should be fine. And also, it'll be just a nice thing for Steeler fans because of all the times the Patriots beat the Steelers in the Tom Brady run, all the big moments, it'll probably be nice to beat them on a banged-up team that should not, looking at a 2-0 start going on with all the turnover and young expectation they have for that team. So that's why I like Pittsburgh here +1 and Pittsburgh straight up. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This one to me, I'm going against the grain here. I am. Because, look, I mentioned the thing about Matt Ryan tying it for an NFL quarterback, besides Kyler Murray. And Jacksonville has this weird little run going on here. So Jacksonville, after losing to the Commanders, they have lost 17 straight road games. The last time they won a road game, you have to go back to the 2019 season to where they played the Raiders, I believe in Week 14 of the 2019 season, where they played on the Oakland Athletic Baseball Field, and they beat the Raiders on the road. But, amazingly, even in that 17-game road streak, the Jaguars have won the last 7 straight home games against Indianapolis. And that was with Gardner Minshew, that was with Trevor Lawrence, that was against Jacoby Brissett. That's a wide range of talents and moments where Indy just, over the years, has not been able to beat Jacksonville in Jacksonville. But I just think there is a way for me with the Colts that is, as bad as they looked through the first half of the game. They were down 20-3 at one point to the Houston Texans, which I don't think anybody expected. I just think the Colts with Taylor, with the confidence of a lot of that team, they know what's at stake, looking at the opportunity they have. Remember, because they're 0-1. They still haven't suffered a loss. And being able to beat the Jags and get them at least a game and a half behind them, I think will be incredibly important. I think Jonathan Taylor will have a very good game. I think they will commit to him more. I think Matt Ryan does not make the mistakes, or, he has better protection, especially with Quentin Nelson now getting that $80 million extension with $60 million guaranteed, that I believe that the Indianapolis Colts go into Jacksonville for the first time in 7 games, win this game. If Jacksonville wins, would I be surprised? Not at all. I think Jacksonville is a squad that, showed a good amount of promise through the game against Washington. They have talent. Riley Patterson's not a bad kicker. James Robinson and Etienne are going to be a good duo, though Etienne did have a big drop that could have gotten the game-winning touchdown. And, Trevor Lawrence is kind of risky with his throws, and he still wants to be that gunslinger, even though he doesn't have to be. But I'm going to take Indy here is because I'm going to trust what the Colts have. They had the motivation from last year. Most of the guys didn't remember what happened. And I think they beat the Jags in a tough, grinding-out game that comes down to a Matt Ryan touchdown at the end to Michael Pittman or Mo Alley Cox. But we shall see. So that's why I like Indianapolis here -4 and Indianapolis straight up. The next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Miami Dolphins. I would congratulate Mike McDaniel. He is the first coach since Nick Saban to win his Dolphins debut. And I always love what the Dolphins do every Sunday. If they win, on their elevators, on their company elevators, they put an image from that victory through the elevator for the next day. I think that's a pretty awesome and creative thing to do. And in this game, look, I think Miami, they have a much better skill positions in terms of just receivers. They have Tyreek, they have Jalen, they have Cedric Wilson, they have they have Chase Edmonds. They have Gesicki, who's pretty solid. We just have Mark Andrews. Even though Rashad Bateman did catch 2 touchdowns, and Devin Duvernay caught 2 touchdowns, and Rashad Bateman caught a big burner. They basically caught the game on ice for the Jets. I think this Dolphins team, everybody remembers last year, we were 8-2 entering that Dolphins game on Thursday night. We got blitzed by the Dolphins, and we did not win a game after that point, which really sucked. And I think, again, it's going to be the Ravens at home. The Ravens at home typically tend to be the Dolphins in close type of competitive games. And if you're just telling me with these two teams, which quarterback do I trust more to win the game, I'm going to trust Lamar Jackson way more than I'll trust Tua if the game gets close for Tua. Though it is tough for the Ravens, we did lose left tackle Jawan James, and we lost Kyle Fuller to significant injuries. I think they said that Kyle Fuller's injury is not seen as too significant to be concerned, or that they could get him back. But I definitely do think with the Ravens here, home opener, all the confidence of Lamar from week 1, his contract on the line from all the talk of yesterday, and I believe the Baltimore Ravens win this game in a thrilling one. I think it's going to be 3 points or less. I would not be surprised at all if the Dolphins won, because I do think they have a quality defense, and I just believe that the Miami Dolphins could get this. And this is a huge tiebreaker game as well. I feel like for a tiebreaker, this is massive for that situation. But give me the Baltimore Ravens here. The better quarterback prevails in this one over the better team. I know I failed with this with the Packers-Vikings, but this should be able to work hopefully this time around. So that's why I like the Baltimore Ravens here to win straight up at the Miami Dolphins plus 3.5. The next game, the Los Angeles Rams over the Atlanta Falcons. That was just an absolute drubbing by Buffalo. 31-10. Cam Akers only had 3 carries for no yards. Allen Robinson only had 2 catches for 12 yards. It was just a thumping that, you don't ever rarely see from Sean McVay. First time he's under 500. And, that was just brutal to watch. I think against Atlanta, though, Atlanta put up a better fight than I thought. I thought Atlanta put up a good fight. I thought that Atlanta, for the most part, did a great job in terms of, being able to run. Mariota making some big plays. Drake London makes a contribution. The defensive line getting a lot of pressure. Young Hoku making the big kicks when he needed to. I thought Atlanta, and I definitely thought with this 10-point spread that I think Atlanta, they're going to surprise people. Especially with how bad that offensive line looked for Stafford. Stafford got sacked 7 times. 2 by Von Miller, 1 by Rougeau, 1 by Espinoza. I definitely think that Atlanta can play a competitive game. And Atlanta's won 5 of the last 6 games against the Rams, even though the Rams won the most recent one. But at the end of the day, I think this Rams team, if they don't fix the offensive line, I think that the Rams, they got their tails kicked in between their legs, and usually great teams, when they get embarrassed, the next week they pour it on to their next opponent. I think it should be, a great game. I think the Rams, with their talent, they all kind of get it back together. The offensive line is going to be key, but I think they hold up a bit better. I think they run the ball more with Cam Akers. I think Henderson gets a few more touches. But I'm going to take the Rams to win this game just because I feel like, again, this is a talented team. I still think they are, one of the 3 best teams in the conference. And I think that they'll right the ship and get, more confidence and more situated better. But I'm going to take the Rams here based off the talent, the anger, and I just don't think the Falcons in this kind of game, it's a different mindset. I think they compete, but I just don't think they, make it a game to where they could actually beat the Rams. If they do, then the Falcons are way better than I thought, and the Rams may not even make the playoffs. If they lost, they got blown up by the Bills, and they lost to the Falcons. So that's why I like the LA Rams here to win straight up, but the Atlanta Falcons, plus 10. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Seattle Seahawks. This is one to where I am going to trust that the Seahawks are going to suck. But after what I saw to the Niners, I am going to take my advice from what I said before, and I'm going to take Kyle Shanahan and them to actually lose off the cover. That's going to take Seattle plus 8.5. Because Kyle Shanahan is 8-29 without Jimmy Garoppolo. He's played 45 games with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's 31-14. The other 37, he is 8-29. That's Trey Lance, Brian Hoyer, C.J. Beathard, I'm trying to think of Nick Mullins, all those other backups and scrubs. He's 8-29 without Jimmy Garoppolo. And if he loses to Seattle, I told everybody this last week, Kyle's not that great, everybody. He's not. And I honestly think that, he should be fired if the Niners have a losing season with all this talent, and if they keep Trey Lance. I think Trey Lance deserves some blame, and he did not play particularly well. He was their leading rusher, and he did get all 8 of their first downs, primarily with his legs and arm. So I do want to give him that. However, I do want Kyle Shanahan to get a good amount of this heat, because I think he has been an overrated and overhyped coach for years, and he made this decision. He could have gone with Jimmy, and they could have just stayed pat. They might not have ever had the Super Bowl expectation, but Jimmy Garoppolo would have beat Chicago in that monsoon. And if he keeps losing, when is everybody going to realize that guy who's 4 games under 500, 39-43, when are people going to realize that bum is not really any good? And I know he's made 2 playoff appearances and 2 conference title games. But at the end of the day, that's just meh. He got lucky. That's not what the Kyle Shanahan that I know. Kyle Shanahan I know just loses a lot of games. He loses a lot of close games that he shouldn't be in, and he makes a bunch of decisions with a bunch of talent that, doesn't really work out. How the heck do you lose to Justin Fields and Ninius St. Brown and Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery in that monsoon where, you had the bigger, flashier prospect that had been given a year where, Justin Fields in his first game got, sacked 9 times and looked awful. But I am going to take the 49ers here just because, again, I don't know how Seattle's going to do, and I hope the Niners, with their anger and their consistency, even though Pete Carroll seems to have Kyle Shanahan's number, even with Jimmy Garoppolo there for some odd reason, but Russell's not there, Drew Lock's there now, or Geno Smith's there now, and I just don't have confidence that's going to be really effective. So I think the Seahawks can cover, but like I said, depending on what happens with the game tonight, I might change my against the spread pick to San Francisco minus 8.5, but I do think the Niners, with their talent, with the confidence of Trey Lance, in a sunnier environment, I think they win that game. So that's why I like San Francisco here to win straight up, and Seattle plus 8.5 to be determined to be changed based off tonight's game. The next game, the Cincinnati Bengals over the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys scored their fewest points in the opening weekend since week 1 of the 1989 season. That was Troy Aikman and Jimmy Johnson's first games as Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry Jones' first year of owning the Dallas Cowboys. So that tells you how bad the Dallas offense was and how inept it was. And, now they lost Dak Prescott for 6 to 8 weeks. That pretty much sinks, I think, the Dallas Cowboys' playoff chances, because I do not think that they're going to win a lot of games moving forward with Cooper Rush or Jimmy Garoppolo or Cam Newton or whatever quarterback you want to bring due to some of the other injuries. There's still no James Washington. Michael Gallup didn't play. CeeDee Lamb really didn't do anything. Dalton Schultz kind of was meh. Ezekiel Elliott couldn't run. The secondary wasn't that great. Trayvon was kind of non-existent. The offensive line got worked. And the Bengals, for as bad as they were, Joe Burrow having the career high with 5 turnovers, they still had a chance to win the game due to Money McPherson or Money Lack Pearson missing the 2 extra points and the field goal. And Dallas, they are not very good without Dak. It is not very often that Dak Prescott misses games, but in the 12 games that Dak Prescott did not play, the Cowboys are 5-7 in those games. Do I think the Cowboys have any shot? Not really. I think if they had Dak, because this line actually originally was supposed to be 2.5 last night. This is before Dak. This was when Dak was running into the locker room. The Cowboys are actually 2.5-point favorites. Now everybody knows about Dak being hurt. That line shifted to a 9-point swing to give Cincinnati a 7-point advantage. And I think Cincinnati covers that with anger and consistency, knowing what they had, knowing who they are, and knowing how good I think the Bengals really are. I think the Bengals easily wipe the floor with the Cowboys with Cooper Rush. And, oh, what a rush for any Legion of Doom fans out there. I think the Bengals easily win this one, and it's a wrap. So that's why I like Cincinnati here -7, and Cincinnati straight up. The next game, the Denver Broncos over the Houston Texans. Denver's won 3 of the last 4 against Houston. Houston got a huge victory by tying against the Colts. I thought that was a really good thing for the Texans, really bad thing for the Colts. And it's just one of those things that Houston, look, they're not really supposed to be good. They're playing a Denver team with Russell Wilson. The Broncos have, talent expectations. You could really take Denver and Seattle and Denver and Houston and not really put a lot of stock into it. But I just think Denver with Russell Wilson. The Broncos did this last year, too. They were 3-0 last year. They beat the Giants. They played week 1. They beat the Jags week 3. They played the Giants week 1, the Jags week 2, and I played the 13 in week 3. They rolled these simple victories together, kind of give some confidence. I think this is different with Russell Wilson compared to Teddy Bridgewater. But I just genuinely, the Broncos are going to be better than the Texans. But I think the Texans played well enough that 10.5 point spread, that's way too much. If they could tie with the Colts at 8, they definitely can compete with the Texans, or compete with the Broncos at 10.5, unless, Davis Mills absolutely shrinks, but I don't think he will. So that's why I like Houston here, plus 10.5, but Denver to win straight up. And in the final 3 games, the Green Bay Packers over the Chicago Bears. Aaron Rodgers only lost 2 home losses in his entire career against Chicago. And I think here's the difference. The Bears got to play Trey Lance. They're playing Aaron Rodgers. That's it. I think both receiving cores aren't that great. I think the Packers have a better running game. I think the Packers secondary will do a better job against the Packers secondary will do a better job against the Bears receivers, which lack there was. Even though I do want to congratulate Equanius St. Brown for scoring a touchdown. A few minutes later, his brother Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Lions scored a touchdown as well. And Khalil Herbert had 45 yards and a rushing touchdown. Again, could the Bears compete? Sure. I think Justin Fields played well enough, and the Bears and the Packers offensive line, if they don't have Jenkins or Bakhtiari, can cause a lot of trouble and frustration for the Packers. And also, look, the Bears have Kyler Gordon. The Bears have Eddie Jackson. The Bears have they have Brister, who I like, the first-round pick last year. Like, they have some decent secondary players, and they have some confidence in saying these aren't the same Packers that he played in years past. But with that 17-5 record that Rodgers has pretty much against Chicago, where he, said last year he owns them, I think the difference for the Bears this time is Rodgers usually doesn't put 2 bad games together, the history together, and I just think the Packers secondary will do a better job, and Rodgers won't make the mistakes or throws, and they'll be able to pound the ball better compared to the Niners, who didn't have Kittle as well. So that's why I like the Green Bay Packers here to win straight up, and I'm going to take Chicago Bears plus 10, based off all the reasons I just said about the inconsistency of the Packers offensive line, the lack of receivers, and just the confidence of Justin Fields in this game, moving forward. He got blown out last year, but, this is a different time, and I think a more competitive Bears team can fight around. And they actually were somewhat competitive last year in a game that the Packers were able to cover by the end. But through about 3 quarters, that was about still a 10-point game. So I have confidence that the Bears can at least cover 10. So we'll see. So that's why I like Green Bay here to win straight up, Chicago plus 10. Then the Monday night doubleheader, the Buffalo Bills over the Tennessee Titans. Stephon Diggs had a perfect passer rating against Jalen Ramsey. Josh Allen had 3 TD. Allen played really well. And I think the Bills are angry. They knew last year when they played the Tennessee Titans that they had them beat. If it wasn't for Josh Allen stumbling or Sean McDermott going for the tie and going into overtime, that the Bills should have beaten the Titans last year. Derrick Henry ran for over, I think, 160 yards on him, and that was basically the difference in the game. And Derrick Henry, he did pretty well yesterday. He had almost 100 yards, was pretty much consistently pounding. Tannehill had 260 yards and a couple TDs. Like, the Titans played a good game, and they had every right to beat the New York Giants, but you could argue they should have never been in that close of a game against the New York Giants. And kudos to Dayball for going for that 2-point conversion, which won the game. And the Titans need to fire Randy Bullock because he is just a bullock. He is a bull crap of a kicker to miss a 47-yarder that could have given the Titans a win. I also just think the Bills are just that good. If they can blow out the Rams by 21 points, beating the Titans by 10 is not nearly going to be as big a problem because the Bills secondary doesn't have to nearly deal with the offensive weapons. Tannehill is not Stafford. You could argue that's a good or bad thing, depending on if you're a Stafford fan or not. But I just think the Bills, they are the best team in the league. They showed it week 1. They've had this extra week or a mini bye week of rest since last Thursday. They get their home opener on Monday Night Football. I think they come in and they play Tennessee, who's kind of reeling off a close emotional loss. They still can win that division because the AFC South, after yesterday, is the worst division in football. But I just think the Bills just handle their business and stop a mud hole into the Titans. As much as I like Tannehill and Vrabel, it's not going to be a fun night next Monday. So that's like the Buffalo Bills here -10 and the Buffalo Bills straight up. And then finally, the Vikings over the Philadelphia Eagles. This is one to where I'm going to trust Kirk Cousins, amazingly. I know Kirk is 1-9 on Monday Night Football. And I know the Vikings, they've had this history of, you get hot moments. Every time you bet on the Vikings, they start to crumble. I get that. But this is a different Vikings team. I loved what Kevin O'Connell did. Kevin O'Connell was consistent. Kevin O'Connell was sharp. The offense, Justin Jefferson had 184 yards and 2 touchdowns, 9 receptions. He played a sensational game. Thielen was making plays. Dalvin Cook had, a mediocre game. Alexander Madison came with some, and that defensive line, boy, was that feisty. And I'm not saying, look, the Eagles' offensive line, it's one of the best in the league, arguably the best, with Mailata, Lane, Kelsey, all those guys. It is probably the best offensive line. But I just think in a way, I think with that running, I think Dalvin Cook and Madison can have big games against that front seven. And I think with the Eagles secondary, though they have Bradbury and Slay to contend against Jefferson and them, I just think the Vikings I think Kirk's going to be able to make a few more throws than Jalen can. I know the Vikings don't nearly have the corners, even though they have Peterson, I forget the other corner. But they still have Harrison Smith back there. But that front seven, I really like that front seven. And I'm just going to trust Kevin O'Connell with the talent he has compared to Sirianni with his. I know Sirianni's more experienced, and Sirianni's done a better job than O'Connell has in O'Connell's second game. Sirianni's 20th game for him, so 2-20, he had a 0 there. So, Sirianni knows these situations. The last time I remember the Eagles playing on Monday Night Football, they got trounced pretty bad by Dallas. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think Kirk Cousins, with the confidence I've seen, I'm going to believe that this is a different Kirk Cousins than we have seen in the past. And I think he's able to maintain, manage, and just can make a few more throws, not runs. If this goes into a rushing game, look, Jalen Hurts has 14 rushing touchdowns in his first 20 starts. Only Cam Newton has more than 17. If it comes down to a running game where, if Jalen can make plays with his legs and feet, legs and arm, the Eagles will win the game. But I think if they can contain Jalen, I think they have enough athletes to do it. I think the Vikings win this game in enough to give Kirk Cousins his second career victory on Monday Night Football. And I believe it would be back-to-back Monday Night Football wins after starting on an 0-9 start. Or an 0-8 or 0-9 start. That's going to be a fun game. It's going to be entertaining. And I think, honestly, with the Vikings, depending on what happens the rest of the week, I think you can make a strong case that the Vikings beat the Eagles after beating the Packers the way they have. The Vikings could be considered the best team in the entire NFC through 2 weeks. I still think the Kirk Cousins problem there, but I would give the Vikings that they are, to me, if they beat the Eagles just like they did the Packers, and if the Bucks, lose or the Bucks struggle, the Rams struggle, and everything else, I think you could say the Vikings through 2 weeks are the best team in the NFC, which I did not think I'd be able to say in the beginning. So that's why I like Minnesota here, +2.5, and Minnesota straight up. So my 3 upsets, once again, I have Washington +2, and Washington straight over Detroit, Pittsburgh +1, and Pittsburgh straight up. And I have Minnesota +2.5 and Minnesota straight up in week 2. So those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Thank you all, the people that watched the videos and commented. I appreciate the nice supportive comments. Rick Miller, Wayne's World, Half Moon's Picks, Andrew Warren. Please check out their channel, Half Moon, and all the other great prognosticators. Sports Fury, the Sports Fan Entertainment. Please check out their channels and content. They are great YouTubers that provide tremendous football content. And I am excited to be back and excited to be producing these videos once again for all the Fanatic fans out there for me and my opinions about things. And that is it. So until next week, good luck to all players, coaches, fantasy players, and fellow prognosticators. And until next week, this is Matt Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.